ledgers and also still have soulbound NFTs?
Yeah, I mean, I think the encryption is definitely like a very important first place to start, and like I would definitely totally not support a system that doesn't have like at least that available as an option. But I think you totally can go much further, right? So like with zk snarks, for example, you could make a system where you have basic you're encrypting not just the content of the soulbound token, but also the sender and the recipient, right? So basically, yeah, imagine we're doing this all on a layer two, and transaction fees are cheap, and the gas is paid through Tornado or what, or through some relay or whatever. Then the stuff that goes on chain is just a record. Record is encrypted to the destination public key. And if you want to do a proof of that you have some particular bit of reputation, then you can just do a zero knowledge proof that says, hey, here is the decryption of one thing, and that one thing is sitting on a chain. If you want to have a proof that says, I have never received something of this type, then you can make a zk snark that just walks over the entire set of records, and then basically show that actually like nothing in that, like if you decrypt everything in that set, then like none of those are going to be a record of this type, right? And possibly you can make a kind of privacy efficiency trade-off somewhere, kind of split it into 100 buckets if you only want to decrypt 1% of everything, but you can like really reduce a lot of information there. Now, once you have that, then basically, what you're left with is just a bunch of records containing encrypted data. And the thing that is leaked is the fact that someone said something about someone at some particular time. And so, definitely you'll be able to do analysis and figure out like, how many North American and Latin American people are using it versus how many Asian people. And to a mathematician, that's a pretty significant data leak, but it does get pretty low already. I do think that the point about encryption eventually, like having a risk of eventually breaking, I think it is something that's fair. Though on the other hand, I would also say that like this gets to the point where like if you don't make some information available, then like that starts really going against some of the positive use cases as well, right? Like at some point like you have to kind of pass some bar of capability, and if you don't pass that bar of capability, people will just create centralized providers that do, right? So I do think that it is possible to kind of reduce the privacy issues a lot, especially once like broken encryption comes into your model. Like you definitely can't do it to 100%, though 10-year-old information getting revealed is less bad than 0-year-old information getting revealed, and still only happens if, occasionally and so forth. And like there's definitely kind of like a place to trade off on the boundary, and so I do think that there is a case that if there is some NFT where like the contents are sensitive, then you might even want to like put a hash of it on chain. And like the thing, well, actually no. Here's what you do: you put the recipient on chain, and you would just send the contents of the NFT to the recipient, and then you put the hash on chain, right? So the recipient holds the data off chain, but then if the recipient wants to kind of walk over the entire data and prove it, then like they can still make a proof using the information that they have personally. And then if they want to prove that a record isn't theirs, they just show that like, look, the ID in this particular position is different, right? So there are lots of technical tricks that you can do. But I do sympathize with the idea that like you can't like bring the issues down to exactly zero. And I think like there is some trade-off at the end, though. At the same time, as I'm sure Justin told you, never underestimate the power of cryptography to do quite a lot. So, I guess at some point it does, get into kind of just being application specific.
MakerDAO is the OG DeFi protocol. The MakerDAO produces DAI, the industry's most battle-tested and resilient stablecoin. Using Maker, you don't need to sell your collateral if you need liquidity. Instead, you can spin up a Maker vault and use your collateral to mint DAI directly. With Maker, the power to mint new money is in your hands. The Maker protocol is extremely hardened and operated by one of the most experienced DAOs in existence. They've been here since the beginning, they've seen it all, and so you can mint DAI with the assurance that your collateral is safe. Soon, Maker will be present on all chains and L2s, so minting DAI can take place on Oasis.app, Zerion, Zapper, or any other DeFi protocol that you use. Follow Maker on Twitter @MakerDAO and learn from the oldest and most resilient DAO in existence. The Brave browser is the user-first browser for the Web3 internet, with over 50 million monthly active users. Control your digital footprint with built-in privacy and ad blocking. Inside the Brave browser, you'll find the Brave Wallet, the first secure crypto wallet built natively inside of a Web3 crypto browser. Web3 is freedom from big tech and Wall Street, more control and better privacy. But there's a weak point in Web3, your crypto wallet. The Brave Wallet is different. Brave Wallet is built natively inside the Brave browser, no extension required, which gives the Brave Wallet an extra level of security versus other wallets. With the Brave Wallet, you can buy, store, send, and swap your crypto assets, and you can even manage your NFTs and connect to other wallets and DeFi apps, all from the security of the best privacy browser on the market. Whether you're new to crypto or a seasoned pro, it's time to switch to the Brave wallet. Download Brave at brave.com/bankless and click the wallet icon to get started. Aave is the leading decentralized liquidity protocol, and now Aave V3 is here. Aave V3 has powerful new features to enable you to get the most out of DeFi, including isolation mode, which allows for many more markets to be launched with more exotic collateral types, and also efficiency mode, which allows for higher loan-to-value ratios, and of course, portals, allowing users to port their Aave position across all of the networks that Aave operates on, like Polygon, Phantom, Avalanche, Arbitrum, Optimism, and Harmony. The beautiful thing about Aave is that it's completely open source, decentralized, and governed by its community, enabling a truly bankless future for us all. To get your first crypto collateralized loan, get started at aave.com. That's AAVE.com. And also check out the Aave protocol governance forums to see what more than 100,000 DAO members are all raving about at governance.aave.com. I want to ask a question, and this is a little bit beyond my technical expertise to really understand. But if we have this world of like soulbound NFTs and that's leaking all of this data that we don't want leaked, but we have the solutions to stop those leaks from being leaked with a combination of encryption and ZK proofs. If we maximize if we plug up all the holes of the leaking of the data with the ZK proofs and encryption, do we actually kind of ultimately just work back down to the same properties of off-chain NFTs in the first place? Or off-chain credentials, I mean.
The key property that we keep, right, is this. I think one, this ability to prove negatives, and which I do think is important. I think just to kind of expand on why I think like proving negatives is important. Like I think. It is definitely true that there are like negative or things that people have where if they get revealed, then those properties can get used against them. And I do think that like there's a really big and important role for privacy to play in kind of fighting against that. And I think even the crypto space itself is like a really good example of that, right? And lately we've been having more and more of these anons on Twitter, and they can just get kind of respected for who they are as anons, and we don't even necessarily needs to know what their faces look like, and unless and until they show them, right? And I think that's like people having the option to do that is beautiful. But at the same time, I think kind of the two caveats I would give there is one, that there is a way in which proving negatives can be kind of more, even more egalitarian and empowering than having to prove positives in some cases. And like one particular example of this, right, is in the real world, like in the non-crypto world, there are applications where like one side needs to know that the other side is at least reasonably trustworthy. And one thing that they might do is like prove that the other side doesn't have a criminal record, right? And that's nice because it's like a very simple test that someone is like at least not in, the bottom kind of a few percent of trustworthiness, kind of probably. And it's something that like most people have by default, right? Now, if we did not have the ability to prove the absence of a criminal record, then the thing that people would probably be forced to do instead is they would be forced to basically say you have to provide positive evidence of good character. And once you have to find positive evidence of good character, then that's going to be something that's harder for people to find, right? Like some just person who just has some stall on the street where she's been selling bananas for $1 for 25 years, never did anything wrong, trustworthy, but just because she's not part of the system, she might not even have that evidence of good character, right? So I think that's one important sense in which kind of lack of negatives can be a more egalitarian thing than presence of positives. And also presence of there are a lot of cases even today where presence of positives is something that can be used to exclude, right? Even a simple one is just requiring proof of citizenships, right? A developed country passport, something that 86% of people in the world don't have. I think, crypto really tries and cares about being global. That's, even a system that, even if you create a system that just allows checking that, then you're already allowing for the possibility of excluding people on that basis, right? So I think my general kind of view on this is that I don't think you really can kind of finally kind of target properties just by making it possible to prove positives and not possible to prove negatives. I think it's I think to what extent a system is going to have the good outcomes and not going to have the bad outcomes is going to be based on these kind of much more kind of finely grained and detailed economic properties. And I think in probably both kinds of systems, there's a utopia way to do it and a dystopia way to do it.
Well, Vitalik, I'm really glad that you brought up inclusion, because, as much as we would like for it to be the case, right, the Ethereum does not provide the only API of data about people on the planet. And so if we want to be able to make utterances that are relevant to people who use websites and email addresses and Solana and Bitcoin, we are going to need tools that allow us to communicate with the keys that they already have, as opposed to requiring the exclusionary need for them to hold the keys that we prefer to interact with our chosen system. That said, I also think that there's a prioritization opportunity for us here. Which problems are most urgent for us to pursue, right? Which need the most love right now? And so I think that there is a robust set of these opportunities where we might explore positive reputation in terms of enabling better governance, as you were suggesting, right? For every community of well-meaning members, there's one Brantley. And so I think to the extent that we might think about, how reputation positively can impact the systems that we have today to unblock us immediately, I think that's a really great place for us to start focusing our effort while we studiously and collaboratively define, what is the identity system that's going to work for everybody. So I mentioned earlier, Kim Cameron's laws of identity that set forth a sort of industry standard framework for identity systems that minimize risk and harm to people. And I think there are a few of these things that I want to pull out that I think are relevant for us to discuss here today. I think user control and consent, as I mentioned earlier, is a core pillar, right? Just like how World of Warcraft loot screens, allow players to consent to put something in their inventory, even if it's non-transferable afterwards. In these systems, in systems that are intended to minimize risk and harm to people, users should consent to those data interactions. And that may mean also consenting to participate in a system that involves negative reputation, right? We participate in the society, therefore we are subject to certain facets of our state. Pluralism of operators and technologies is sort of agreed upon element of a strong foundation for a global identity system that does not bring harm. So we avoid a monolithic solution. And minimal disclosure, as we talked about before, so you can share data with a minimum number of parties required. It's on a need-to-know basis, and this is kind of at odds with the 24/7 data availability that we've come to get used to in Web 2, where apps have 24/7 access to our information. And so I think that, this is a really wonderful opportunity